Thank you, members. Michael Boccadoro on behalf of the Ag Energy Consumers Association. Appreciate the opportunity. Let me just be clear, rates are high in California. They're 2 to 3 times the national average today, not just agricultural rates, all rates, and they're going to go far higher. They're easily going to be at 4 times the national average in the not too distant future, probably by 2030 based on many of the estimates. They're rising faster than the national average, and they're rising far faster inflation. In fact, we can make the case that they're driving inflation here in California significantly. The earlier panel focused on gas rates. I'm going to try to limit to electricity here. It's interesting to hear PG&E talk so much about reducing costs. If they're doing all these efforts to reduce costs, why are they proposing to increase rates in 2023 alone by 36%, 9.1 cents a kilowatt hour? That's from their own presentation that they gave to some agricultural and business customers in the San Joaquin Valley very recently. It's a massive rate increase, and it's just the beginning. And it's not one time. That'll go into rate base, and it'll be there every year. And every year after that, they will build on that rate increase. Next year, they're proposing another rate increase. And in 2025, another rate increase. And in 2026, the fourth year of their general rate case, yet another rate increase. This is a huge problem for ratepayers. And so what you're hearing from your natural gas customers because of a price spike is being baked into the electricity prices in the state. It's a problem for low-income ratepayers. It's a problem for businesses, a problem for agriculture. We often hear that we don't care about rates, we only care about bills. Well, I can assure you that our bills in California and the farm community are far higher because we use more electricity than other areas because we move water here in California. We're not reliant on rainfall to grow crops. We move water around, we pump water, and that is what drives our energy costs. And so they're far higher here. So on top of the high rates, we use more energy. And so we're at a huge competitive disadvantage to farming operations in other parts of the country. And that's true for all businesses. Businesses, unlike customers, are not affected by climate. When you're producing a widget or a commodity, it takes the same amount of energy here in California as it does just about anywhere else. And so we are very much impacted by rates and overall costs, and it's a huge problem. And even residential ratepayers, we often hear that our bills are below average, even though our rates are far above average. Reality of that is averages are inherently inaccurate. If you're on the coast, you probably pay a little less than average. If you're in Mr. Mathis's district or Mr. Garcia's district or other areas where it's hot, you're paying far higher than average. And so it's really disconcerting to hear folks talk about our bills are low, so we shouldn't worry about high rates. High rates affect a lot of folks, and ultimately they're going to affect the state's climate policies. We're already seeing it. Even though PG&E's rates are high and going higher, they are failing miserably to be able to deliver electricity to the San Joaquin Valley, where we need it to electrify our forklifts, our tractors, our equipment. A typical heavy-duty truck requires between 1 and 1.5 megawatts, according to PG&E's own folks that participated in a recent meeting down in Mr. Mathis's district, per truck for a rapid charger. So if we're going to replace a 200 truck fleet at an agricultural operation, we're going to need 200 megawatts delivered. PG&E's not in a position to deliver that today. It's taking 3 to 4 years or more for them to be able to deliver that electricity. And a lot of that is the fact that they are focused on reducing their own liability with wildfire mitigation. Not arguing that it isn't important, but it's coming at a cost to electrification of other areas of the state. It's simply not happening in rural areas because PG&E cannot deliver on that. So I can go on for hours about the concerns with PG&E, but they're rapidly becoming one of the biggest barriers we have to the state's climate policies. And literally, all the efforts that we do in the dairy industry and the other industries to reduce emissions are going up in smoke every time PG&E causes a wildfire. The legislative analyst did a wonderful report on that recently about the impacts of black carbon from wildfire and how they're dramatically offsetting all the reductions other parts of the industry are doing. So what are the solutions? We've got to start looking for ways to take some of the costs out of rate base. whether that's for electric vehicle charging or others. I'm not suggesting it doesn't need to be done, just can't go into rate base. It can go into an infrastructure bond. It can go into other ways to get that infrastructure that we need done without putting it into rate base. The utilities love investing money. They're not investing their own money. They're investing ratepayer money. They love to invest it because they make money every time they invest capital. The more they invest, the more return they get. And so we just really need to take a hard look at that. We do, and I appreciate the comments earlier, we need to take a look at having companies pick up part of these costs when we see price spikes. They have to have a little skin in the game, we like to call it in the ag community. If you don't have skin in the game, you're not really truly concerned. And I've been a ratepayer advocate now for 30 years, and I can tell you, at the end of the day, shareholder interests always take precedence over ratepayer interests with the investor-owned utilities. And then finally, we have to watch natural gas rates. They're still a very significant component. The panel didn't get a clear answer about the cost of biomethane, and I am one of the biggest supporters of biomethane in the state. My dairies are creating more biomethane than any other source here in California. And the reality is biomethane's really expensive. The price spikes that we're talking about were $50 gas that came into the system. PG&E and the gas company, particularly the gas company, are trying to bake that into natural gas costs by loading up the system with biomethane. And I'm a big supporter of putting biomethane to productive use. We need to capture it from our facilities here in California, put it to beneficial use, but we need to be very careful because it is very expensive. And contrary to popular myth, it is not going to come down in cost over time. It's getting more expensive because we're moving to smaller and smaller dairies, smaller and smaller wastewater agencies, and smaller landfills where the economies of scales are lost, not gained. Hydrogen can also dramatically increase costs. We're looking, between biomethane and hydrogen, $35 an MMBTU, up to $60, $70 an MMBTU for hydrogen today, green hydrogen. So be very wary when you hear the utilities talking about putting large amounts of renewable natural gases into their pipelines. Not going to do much from an environmental standpoint. Hydrogen can have an impact. Biomethane burns the same. So we need to be very, very careful about gas rates going forward. I'll conclude my comments there and look forward to answering questions.